Okay, so what if our feelings weren't some big unsolvable mystery, but a mechanism? What if you could actually engineer your relationships to be stronger, more resilient? Today, we are diving into a pretty radical framework that looks at human connection not as magic, but as architecture, a system we can finally understand and maybe even improve. So let's just start with this question, because it really gets to the heart of everything. Forget about romance and chemistry for just a second. Instead, picture your relationship as a bridge that's designed to carry a whole lot of weight. Now, what happens when that load gets too heavy? Does it really matter how pretty the bridge looks if it's about to collapse?
And this slide right here, this perfectly captures the big idea behind what's called the relational operating system. It's about shifting our whole perspective. Moving away from the messy, tangled world of unpredictable feelings and judging each other's character, and moving towards something more like, computable mechanics, a world where we can actually measure the load on a relationship and analyze its structure, not just argue about the symptoms.
So who on earth came up with this? Well, the person behind this idea has, let's just say, an unconventional background. And it turns out that was the perfect environment for forging this brand new system. He's definitely not who you'd expect. Yeah, the systems architect, Sean Rouse, he's not a psychologist. He's a systems thinker through and through. His career was basically a masterclass in watching complex systems break under pressure. He was a pioneer in digital video for companies like Apple and Microsoft. He designed these massive concert tours for Ozzy Osbourne. He even helped seniors navigate the maze at his Medicare. And through all of that, he was really just asking one question: why do systems fail?
And this is where the story gets really critical. This framework wasn't dreamed up in some comfy academic lab. No, it was documented on a smartphone while Rouse himself was facing homelessness and recovering from a traumatic brain injury. So this wasn't just a theory, it was a literal survival tool, tested and proven under the most extreme pressure you can possibly imagine.
And this quote right here, this is the key. Think about it. When there's friction in a relationship, our first instinct is to blame, right? To see it as a flaw in our partner. But this framework says, nope, that's not it. That friction is just data. It's a warning light on your dashboard telling you the system is overloaded. It completely shifts us from blame to diagnosis.
Okay, so how does this system actually work? How do you even begin to measure a relationship? Well, it's all built on 5 core regulators that function just like the load-bearing parts of that bridge we were talking about.
This table is really the heart of the Relational Operating System, or ROS. It shows how it reframes, everything. For example, your environment isn't just stuff you have to cope with, it's the primary pressure field. Yourself isn't just your personality, it's your internal processing capacity. And check out time. We always say time heals all wounds, right? Well, here, it's seen as an active force that either makes the structure stronger or speeds up its decay.
Let's just zoom in on one of these to make it super clear. Mortar. We tend to think love is the glue that holds a relationship together. But the ROS argues that love is the motivation to build the thing, it's not the structure itself. The mortar, the actual stuff holding the bricks together, is the set of observable behaviors. Things like honesty, reliability, and respect. That's what gives a relationship its structural integrity when it's under pressure.
Okay, now this is where the story gets truly remarkable. We're about to see how this completely independent, outsider idea unexpectedly builds a bridge directly to decades of established, peer-reviewed science. And this is so crucial to understand. Rouse built this whole framework from the ground up. It wasn't based on reading a bunch of psychology textbooks. It came from 3 decades of direct, systematic observation of how systems, both human and technical, act when they're under a heavy load.
And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? An idea developed completely in a vacuum, totally outside of academia, it could be fascinating, but just completely wrong, right? Totally disconnected from reality. So what happened when it was finally put to the test?
The answer is just breathtaking. After the entire framework was complete, it was discovered that its core components had independently converged with major peer-reviewed scientific theories. The ROS idea of environment, it maps perfectly to something called Bronfenbrenner's bioecological model. Mortar lines up with attachment theory. Reciprocity is a dead ringer for the science of dyadic coping. It's like 2 different people started on opposite sides of the world and drew the exact same map without ever talking to each other.
So this shocking discovery, this convergence, it led to the climax of the story, taking this engineering model, born from pure observation and lived experience, and submitting it for validation in the one place it was never, ever designed for,
The Formal World of Academic Humanities. Rouse didn't just write a pop psychology book. He wrote a formal, 7,000-word academic manuscript and submitted it to a serious, peer-reviewed journal called Humanities and Social Sciences Communications. And he framed the whole thing as a case study in what's called translational science, the process of moving knowledge from raw observation into real-world application.
And in his communications with the journal, he made a really powerful argument. He basically contended that the validity of an idea shouldn't depend on where it comes from, a university lab or the harsh realities of the real world. What matters is its internal logic, its structure, and its ability to accurately describe reality. He was essentially knocking on the door and asking them to recognize that powerful knowledge can be created outside of their traditional institutions. So what was the result? The paper wasn't rejected. In fact, it was advanced toward peer review with a minor revision status. Now, for an independent researcher with no PhD, no university backing, that is a monumental step. It was this critical moment where this outsider idea knocked on the front door of the academic establishment, and amazingly, they opened it a crack to listen.
So, okay, why does any of this matter to you? Here's the big takeaway. Most of our tools measure how stressed you feel. That's the output. The ROS measures the structural conditions that are creating that stress in the first place. Those are the inputs. This means you can spot problems way earlier, before there's a crisis, and your interventions can be so much more precise. And the applications are everywhere, from therapy to corporate wellness programs. The framework is so robust, so predictable, that it's even being adapted for artificial intelligence. I mean, just imagine an AI that doesn't just respond to your words, but actually understands the real-time stress load you're under by monitoring your biometrics. And then it could adjust its behavior to better support you, all based on these exact engineering principles. It's pretty wild.
This quote, it just brings it all home. It perfectly captures the profound shift this system offers. It's about moving us away from that endless, painful cycle of asking, whose fault is this, and toward the much more productive, diagnostic question, where is the structure failing and what can we do to fix it?
And that really leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought. We might be at the very beginning of a new era of understanding ourselves not as these unsolvable mysteries, but as systems. And if we can truly learn to calculate something as messy and complex as relational stress, what other parts of the human experience are we going to learn to measure, to map, and maybe even to engineer?